Today on Locked On Rockies, the Pirates are back in town. Usually something to be excited about, but not quite this year.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans and Pirates fans, welcome into a Locked On Podcast Network crossover between the Locked On Rockies podcast and the Locked On Pirates podcast. I'm one of your hosts today, Paul Holden, joined by the host of the Locked On Pirates podcast, Ethan Smith. Ethan, how are things?
Dude, for everybody wondering, me and Paul are kind of in the same spot. You guys might notice over at Locked On Pirates, you don't see the wonderful backdrop that I usually have with all the stuff right now, moving, having a fun time. It took like 3 hours to get internet to even get you guys this podcast. So hopefully you enjoy it. Also, all the messages from the audience, by the way, I know the last time you guys were asking about trades. Me and Paul are going to get into that this time. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into what these teams are going to look like at the deadline, what these teams look like for the rest of 2022, and of course, what these teams look like right now as the Rockies and Pirates are meeting up for a nice weekend set at Coors Field. Before we dive into things, got to remind you that this is the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming platform, and we're streaming live on YouTube right now on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. But if you want to stay up to date with all things your favorite team, you got to subscribe to your favorite host on Locked On, wherever on YouTube, because it's a massive, massive help to us here on the podcast network. And let's dive in, Ethan. The Rockies just finished up a stretch against the NL West and played pretty good. They did get swept by the Dodgers. But they do go back. They actually take a series from the Dodgers. They take a series from the Diamondbacks, and they win 3 of 4 against the Padres to move to 8-3 on the season. And now the Pirates come into town, and you'd usually sit there and say, hey, it's the Pirates. This is an opportunity for the Rockies to continue some series wins, continue to move things along. But that hasn't been the case with these two teams. The Pirates have played the Rockies incredibly well this season, and not just the Rockies, but the entire NL West.
Yeah, I know we did Rockies fans a favor by beating the Dodgers in that wonderful 3-game set in LA. Pirates are 6-2 against the Dodgers and the Yankees this year, for everybody wondering. But, I mean, the Rockies are hot right now, dude. They just came off of a series beating the Padres. The Pirates played the Padres pretty well earlier this year. I don't believe we played the Diamondbacks yet. I think that's the only team in the division that we have not seen, because we have played the Giants as well. But, I mean, the last time these two teams met, things were a little different. Chris Bryant wasn't in the lineup. The Rockies were also kind of teetering. But they are obviously a way better home team than they are a road team. I think a lot of people know that. The ball flies out of Coors Field. Trust me, I play MLB The Show 22 enough to know that the ball flies out of Coors. But the Pirates, for the series they just came off of, I mean, they win the first 2 games in Miami pretty convincingly. I mean, I know the second game of that series was 3-2, but the pitching was on point the entire series. You just so happen to lose in 11 and 10 innings in the other 2, and it's just like, man, you got to start winning these close games if you're the Pirates. I know this team isn't exactly like the greatest team, but fun fact about the Pirates, they are 40-36 this season as an underdog. So they have a winning record when they are the underdog. So what does that tell me? They don't know how to win when they're actually favored, which they're not favored in this series. But for the Rockies and the Pirates even, this is a very important series to separate these two teams.
And exactly, because it's for the Rockies side, you're about 6.5 games out of that third wild card spot at this point in the season. If you want to continue to try to make ground, you just had great success against the division. And as I've said many times on the pod, on the Rockies side, it is every division win for the Rockies is worth more than any other win, because it's going to have, it helps you get to that wild card spot a little bit more, because odds are there's going to be 1, maybe even 2 representatives from the NL West there at the wild card. It comes the end of the season. But then when it comes to the Pirates, you got to beat a team like this. And maybe I blew things out of proportion when you look at the last series. The first 2 games between the Rockies and the Pirates both 2-1 games, with the Pirates taking the first one, the Rockies taking the second one, but the Pirates exploding for 10 runs there in game 3. But the Pirates, again, they seem like they're hanging around, and they seem like they've put some stuff together. And kind of, again, if you look at things, just like when you look at the Rockies, there's storylines to like. So what have you been enjoying about Pirates baseball right now? Now we're getting to the middle point of the season. We've seen some players play for a bit. What are some of the bright spots on this Pirates team right now?
I know it's a cop out, but O'Neal Cruz definitely at the plate. He's struggling a little bit, but I mean, the guy also just broke a Statcast record again yesterday for the hardest hit or hardest thrown ball in the Statcast era by a position player. Key Brian Hayes has done his thing. Brian Reynolds, before he got hurt, he had a great month of June. Did phenomenal things in June. Was picking it up a little bit in July, and now he's on the 10-day. Really, it's been the pitching, though, man. Like, JT Brubaker has done good things. Rowanzi was doing good things before he got shut down. Interesting thing about Rowanzi is he only pitched 61 innings last year, didn't pitch in 2020, so that's why he got shut down. JT Brubaker and Zach Thompson also have done their thing. So the pitching is there. Would I like to see a little bit more from the offense? Of course. We're not seeing as much as what you would like to see from the offense to back up these quality 6 innings that these guys are giving. But the bullpen has been phenomenal. Of course, the lone all-star for the Pirates being David Bednar. I forget who the lone all-star for the Rockies is, but
CJ Cron is the member.
CJ Cron.
Yeah.
Why? I'm not surprised. He's had a great year. But the bullpen has been good. The starting pitching has been good. And that's where tonight you bring up, we'll talk about this later about trade pieces, but you're going to probably see the Pirates' biggest trade piece pitch tonight in Jose Quintana. And that's what I'm liking to see is the Pirates, a lot of these small market teams, they need the pitching to really elevate them. And that's what I hope they continue to do.
Pitching is so important for teams, and you can always find, I mean, there's always gonna be some people that can put some thump in the ball, but if you have a solid rotation, if you have solid pitchers, I feel like that's one of the more difficult things and something you can get really excited about as a team that's starting to grow and still in that rebuild type of mode. If you got good pitching both from the starters and the bullpen, it's something that to be excited about. And that's before, kind of, you look in the past as things were gearing up on the offense for the Rockies, it was getting more exciting that the competitive teams, the playoff teams, also had those starting lineup, those pitchers that were successful at Coors and actually having impact on those games. And one thing that's interesting too, a quick little stat here, and with being at a more hitter-friendly ballpark over stat from ESPN's game preview, the Pirates are 23-7 in games where they out-hit their opponents. It's kind of an obvious stat when you think about it, because if you hit more, you're going to score more runs. But that's not how it always happens in baseball, especially when it comes to the Rockies. I think there's been multiple games this year where the Rockies have not been able to win games when they've out-hit their opponents. So from the offensive side, are you expecting a little hitter-friendly ballpark? Is that stat going to get better this weekend?
It's possible, but what tells more about that stat, in my opinion, is the Pirates have played 90 games and have only had 30 games where they've out-hit their opponent. That means 1/3 of the time you're not out-hitting your opponent. So, again, as I mentioned earlier, the Rockies have a better home record than the Pirates do, but if the bats by and large go hot, which Rockies fans, I'll talk to you for a second. Josh Van Meter, Ben Gamel, Key Brian Hayes, Daniel Vogelbach, O'Neal Cruz, Kevin Newman, Cal Mitchell, Jake Marisnik, and Jason DeLay. The guy with more than 75 at-bats that has the highest average in that is Key Brian Hayes batting .251. Not exactly great. Adrian, no. I remember you from the last time. No, Bednar is not on the table. But, I mean, if this offense can get hot, it's a heavy lefty lineup. I know the Rockies have a lot of righties in their rotation. Chad Kuhl. Love you, Chad Kuhl. Glad you've revitalized your career in Colorado. But, I mean, you never know. Like you said and I said, it's a hitter-friendly ballpark. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And let's dive in. Let's see, the trade deadline's looming. Let's talk about trade pieces. And if you want to add a nice piece of jewelry to your collection, or maybe a piece of jewelry to celebrate a milestone moment, well, you can find jewelry as unique as your favorite person with the convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. And Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect engagement engagement ring, and each ring is one of a kind. Looking for jewelry but having trouble choosing, exactly like I would be in that situation? Well, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. They're available on the phone or on the web chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. And we got a great deal for you at BlueNile.com right now. And you can make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Rockies and Pirates listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. That's BlueNile.com. Ethan, what are you hoping your team does? What are you hoping to see from the Pirates when the deadline is here? You're going to see Jeff Passan tweet, "The Pittsburgh Pirates have done blank." And give me the extremes. Give me best case scenario for the Pirates right now at the deadline, what the moves and the stuff they make, and give me worst case scenario, what they do at the deadline.
Starting with worst case scenario, if Brian Reynolds and David Bednar are not on this team after the trade deadline, the Pirates did something wrong. This team is this close, I think, to adding a couple pieces and being a legitimate wild card contender in 2023. I really think that. If you were an outsider from the Pirates organization and not knowing what was going on, you might be like, Ethan, you're on something. Like, what's going on, pal? What do you want? For me, though, really it's just a difference in adding to the bullpen, which is already a strength, adding some bats in the lineup that are going to be strengths, which you'll also do in the organization. And I would say the guys that you would think about that you're probably going to see the Jeff Passan tweet about, definitely Jose Quintana. Quintana will be on that list. He is a guy that me and Jeff Carr and Steven over at Locked On Reds talked about it with the Castillo news. Whenever Castillo gets traded, the next ticker is going to be the Frankie Montas, the JP Winkledine, those guys that you hear about that are on the market right now. Quintana's in that group. Expiring contract, veteran with a 3.66 ERA. He's been consistent, getting 5 or 6 good innings every outing. He's the best trade chip they have, and it's an obvious move to trade him, but I also wouldn't be mad if they keep him. But to name other people, Jake Marisnick is another guy that I think could possibly help another team with his defense and his bat off the bench. Ben Gamel is an energy boost for a lot of people, a lot of different teams. Kevin Newman, who just came back from injury and has actually done pretty well from coming back from injury, batting .292 over the course of 45 at-bats. You'll take that as a contending team. The Pirates have pieces that they can move. Like Daniel Vogelbach even has been arguably one of the better DHs in all of baseball if you look at OPS past the average. But I don't expect, and I've said this and some people have given me flack for it, I don't expect the Pirates to throw everything out the window and be like, okay, what can we get for Bednar? What can we get for Reynolds? What can we get for whoever? I don't think that's going to happen. It's not going to be like last year where Clay Holmes, all these other guys were all traded, like Clay Holmes, Adam Frazier, all these big names. I don't think you see that this year. But I'll throw the question back at you. Say the Rockies do win this series, which is an expectation, I would assume. Where does that put you guys in the kind of buy-sell market for the trade deadline?
Well, I think we know. I mean, the thing is, we've seen some early reports. We actually got a report this week. GM Bill Schmidt went on the record and says the team will not be sellers at the deadline. They are already embracing for that, and I think Rockies fans won't be surprised to hear that. Unfortunately, the Rockies should make moves. They need to make moves, and one of them, I think, now more than ever, you got to trade Jose Iglesias. He is having a great season. He's obviously been a great part of the Rockies defense, but expiring contract and the big part of the future, your big prospect is at shortstop. The whole idea with Jose Iglesias was a stopgap, was to fill time, was to buy time until you can bring people up and bring some of these young guys. He is not the future of shortstop, so you got to be able to move on from him because who knows? He might come back next year and help you buy a little more time, but why? The Rockies need to stop seeing like maybe, like what's up? We got to see about going on and and going about maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. The Rockies need to just know and look a little bit ahead. And at the end of the day, is it going to be the worst if they get rid of Jose Iglesias? It might. Their offense might stutter, at least at this point, with the way he's producing later. But if you're still not finding yourself in a competitive position, if you stumble in this series, you do have to evaluate. Alex Colomé, Chad Kuhl, for example, again might be another one there. I think the Rockies are more interested in bringing Kuhl back at this point because he has really started to enjoy Colorado. So again, I think you got to make moves, at least like for Iglesias. But if you really wanted to make a big splash, if the Rockies were kind of still, and I was saying this a couple weeks ago before playing a little bit better of the stretch and keeping things relative, I think a lot of teams would be interested in CJ Cron and Daniel Bard. Cron's got that extra year of control. He's obviously having a career year. Power bat, first base. Who wouldn't want to be putting a first base power bat DH into their lineup? Somebody that he's got the bad splits. People might be afraid of that, but he's still going to give you some big hits. Now, I don't think any of this is going to happen. I think the Rockies are going to make maybe 1 to 2 minor moves. They really believe, they like to believe in their team. They don't want to do rebuild. They don't want to do this. But there's no lefties on this team in the bullpen. There's no lefties in the organization. There's no depth there. And if you're still looking and if you're still grasping at some straws of a potential third wild card when it comes to deadline time, you got to be willing to make a move and move a Colomé, an Estevez, a Iglesias, even considering they're not going to move Bard or Cron because I'm pretty sure they're going to try to keep that. They like them a lot. They're really excited. In the Rockies, as much as I kind of enjoy the fact that they are committed to players, they overcommit, and it's just like, hey, bam, CJ Cron, you're here. We got you. And that was a great move, but it is also like in the future, CJ Cron's playing first base for you for 2 more years, maybe at this point with his contract. When you're getting and having Montero and Tovar and Veen and your future playing at an everyday level, is CJ Cron still going to be playing a factor? And could you move him that's going to be making a bigger impact when the Rockies are more likely going to be in that chase, maybe when teams are getting restructured? Because eventually the Dodgers are going to have to do something. They have the deep pipeline, sure, but eventually they're not going to be able to buy everybody. They're going to go to different teams. Eventually the Padres are going to, will regret. Eventually the NL West will regress. And the Rockies need to be on the up and up to there while they're at this point where they're still fighting for their lives. But again, you still sit there and you're just like, well, like if the chips fall correctly, the Rockies could be in a position to be competitive. But I don't want to be sitting there in August still saying like, well, they might when they're still 5.5 back. When they could have gotten, they could have flipped Iglesias for a nice left-handed arm that's in AAA right now that can come and be major league ready, or a nice left-handed bullpen arm to come help you out now.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like these teams have a lot in common. I'll say that. This Rockies team, after watching them, seeing the record, seeing how you're talking about them, reminds me a little bit about the 2018 Pirates. When they were right there, they were right there. They were a couple games back. They said, you know what? We're going to go grab Chris Archer. We're going to go grab Chris Archer. He's going to be the difference. He'll get us in the race. It didn't happen. I'm not saying it'll happen. That's the same way it'll happen for the Rockies. And also for your own sanity after losing Story and Arenado, I really hope you don't make a Chris Archer X trade with a team to go get some guy that you end up giving up your top prospects for. But I don't blame your management for saying, okay, say they sweep the Pirates and the teams ahead of you maybe even win the series, but lose a game there. That's a game you're adding on. That's the thing I love about baseball. It's such an intricate little game because, yeah, for Yankees fans, they could think, we just lost to the Reds, that whole deal, like whatever happened in New York this week with the Reds and the Yankees. You never know. Maybe they start slumping in August and that race gets tighter for that top spot in the AL, and they have to look back on that series and say, we couldn't beat the Reds once. Like, even the Dodgers, for instance, can go back and look at that Pirates series and say, We squandered 3 games against the Pirates in the middle of May, and that cost us winning the NL West. It's all things that happen. And that's why I like that the Rockies are coming out and saying, like you said, he's coming out and saying, we're not selling. You have no reason to sell. You're right there pretty much as long as you start playing good baseball. And that's why in 2018, at the time, that Pirates trade didn't seem too bad. But then we didn't know that Shane Baz, Glasnow, and Meadows were going to turn into what they are now. So you never know, man.
Yeah,
It's hard.
it's very hard, and it is like, yeah, there you look at the stats and you look at some of these Rockies players, and it is kind of like this team should be better, but there is, but it's sometimes just kind of being realistic. And I just don't think the Rockies front office is always realistic. They never want to, never want to embrace rebuild, never want to do this, never want, but instead it's like, you could have just made some shifts, and it could just be something small. And, sometimes even with these expiring contracts, I think players and everyone need to be more open-minded to, hey, we're going to send you off at the deadline, but let's talk in the off season. Like, why not? We're in a spot. You can go see what you like. You can kind of experience it, but we're more than willing to talk about bringing you back. And I would just like the Rockies to kind of address some of their things. It just doesn't seem like they are doing a lot. And the big trades they make don't always pan out. Again, the big major one, the Rockies got one compensatory draft pick for John Gray and Trevor Story, when instead at the deadline last year, the haul the Rockies could have gotten for a nice package of John Gray and Trevor Story to an abundance of teams, that's a 5 prospect deal right there. 4 or 5 and it's maybe not your ones and your twos, but I'm fine if the Rockies get a nice dose of new prospects of a team, because the Rockies farm system got some nice, really appealing stuff on the top, and then it just is it just falls off completely. And a Major League Baseball team needs to have more left-handed arms. Dang it! Like this team just needs to have, it's just crazy that they don't. But
what was that, Paul? Say that again.
They need more left-handed arms.
Yeah. I was going to say, because the Pirates, once they trade Quintana, guess how many left-handed arms they're going to have in the starting rotation? 0. Guess how many left-handed arms they're going to have in the bullpen? 2. That's 13 guys, and you have 2 lefties. Come on now. Have we seen Chris Sale pitch back when he was in Chicago? Have you seen Robbie Ray pitch in Toronto and Seattle this year? I mean, have you seen Clayton Kershaw pitch? Dude, a lefty is so important. Every time the Pirates play a lefty, they're screwed because half of our lineup, over 90% of our lineup is lefties.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important, dude.
I agree. You can't be so overstacked on one side. Just like you can't overstack your bets on one area. And the best place if you want to get your bet action in is betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports development, league reviews, and news, including all the action for Major League Baseball this year. Don't miss out on all the fun at Bet Online, your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And Bet Online remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. And let's head on over to Bet Online here, Ethan, and let's preview a little bit of the here and now for these two teams. And over on the Bet Online here right now, let's take a look at what we got going on here for these Pirates, these Rockies, all the fun. The run line at plus 1.5 for the Pirates, but let's take a look at some of the points here. Over under, Ethan, 4.5 runs for the Pirates in this one tonight. Under, you're going under. You got German Marquez keeping the Pirates at bay tonight.
I think this is, I don't know. It's one of those that could be. It's one of those could not be. I'm not really sure. I don't know, because Colorado is such a hitter-friendly park that I don't want to say, yeah, definitely the Pirates are going under 4 runs. But I'll still say under just because I don't know if I trust this offense enough to even score 4 runs.
All right, let's see here. Do you take the plus 256 that Bryant Hayes has under a hit is going to be held hitless tonight here in the series opener?
No,
Yeah,
over.
I'm going to tell you, I would take the over on that one as well. But if you want, I would take the under on the Randall Grichuk hit tonight. Randall Grichuk has been struggling. He's gotten a couple of big hits, but he hits the ball on the ground a ton there, and that's been one of the kind of the Rockies traded for Grichuk. They traded Raimel Tapia to get less ground balls, and Grichuk has now gone and hit a ground ball rate. I think that is seventh highest in all of Major League Baseball. Let's see here, maybe one more. Let's drive here. Let's
One
see.
more.
What do you got?
No, I'm just saying one more. Why not?
Yeah, one more. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Jose Quintana over 3.5, over under 3.5 strikeouts tonight.
Over. I think he gets 4. I think he goes just over.
Just gets the over. Herman Marquez is set at 4.5. I'm going to take the over on that. Herman might still, people might be hitting him, but he has still been able to strike batters out. He has been an efficient, he's been getting better. He's still not as sharp as he can be, but Marquez tonight hopefully is another step in the right direction for him. Ethan, let's wrap up with our series prediction. I got 2-1 Rockies in some classic Coors Field games. I got these games being ridiculous. I got these games sitting in that 8-6, 9-7. I got a couple of those in there. And then I'm sure there's going to be one where it's going to be 0-0 until the 6th, something like that.
I'll say 4-3 Pittsburgh. I think this is their best chance easily to win a game in this series with Quintana on the mound. You get Keller on the mound tomorrow against Urena. I think that's where you get your high-scoring game. And then undecided on Sunday, the Pirates don't know what they're doing. So I think Quintana gets the win. Like the one, I think, definite win will be tonight just because of how consistently good he has been. So I'll say 4-3. I think low scoring still, though. I think Marquez, like you alluded to, will have a pretty good outing against a sluggish Pirates offense. And I think we're in for some good baseball either way.
Going to be some great baseball and even better baseball analysis coming to you all here on the Locked On Podcast Network from two wonderful podcasts, the Locked On Rockies podcast and the Locked On Pirates podcast. I'm Paul Holden. You can find me at Paul Holden 33. You can find Ethan there at MVP_Ethan on Twitter. Make sure that you're subscribing to Locked On Rockies and Locked On Pirates on YouTube. Now that you made us your first listen of the day, why don't you go make Locked On MLB Prospects your second listen of the day? And of course, if we want to stay up to date with things across the world of sports, the Locked On Podcast Network has you covered. Ethan, close out the show. What's the last closing words that we have for our audience today?
Raise a Jolly Roger, obviously, and for Rockies and Pirates fans, just have fun. Sub 500 baseball in Colorado this weekend. Just have fun. That's all I can say.
Enjoy hey, for people from Pittsburgh, maybe in Denver, they're going to have the best time. No better place to go watch some baseball than in Denver. But Ethan, thank you so much for the time. And folks, until next time, this has been Locked On Podcast Network.